Does anyone remember the movie An American Tail? It was an animated film by Don Bluth about a little mouse named Fievel, who falls off an immigration ship while immigrating with his family to America from Russia, after an anti-Semitic attack by Cossack cats destroyed their home, as well as the promise by Fievel's father that there are no cats in America. This ends up being false, however. Fievel survives by slipping into a glass bottle in the ocean and floats to a shore in America, and through the movie searches for his family, all the while meeting new friends and exposing a character named Warren T. Rat for extorting the American mice for protection from the cats, of which he never gives. The movie was rather dark and depressing for a children's film, which made it very different from the other children's movies released during the 1980s. Still, the movie got great reception, although it was still outshined by Don Bluth's other classics, such as The Secret of Nim, The Land Before Time. A few days ago I had a conversation with my friends through Discord about some of our favorite movies, and of course I brought up An American Tail. A wave of nostalgia hit me as I remembered watching the movie for the first time, back when I was 8 or 9. Memories of scenes and characters flooded back as I remembered the joy I felt while watching the story of Fievel unfold. It was then I decided I should watch the movie again, for old time's sake. However, I didn't have the DVD of the movie I had all those years ago, so I'd gotten it from Blockbuster when they were still around. I didn't have the patience to wait a week for another copy from Amazon or eBay. I decided to be a bit risky and see what I could find on some torrent sites. It wasn't long until I found a plethora of torrents to choose from. As I was looking around the list, checking to see if they would work as well as not have any deadly viruses that'd kill my laptop, one of the torrents caught my eye. I stopped myself scrolling down the list to read the title, and that's when my curiosity made sense. An American Tail, original version, 1986. My curiosity grew after I read that. I never heard of an original version of the movie. Maybe they were referring to an first release VHS copy from 1986. I thought about that for a moment, figuring that that was what the person was most likely referring to. I clicked on it to see some more info about the torrent. Maybe they'd explain a bit more in the description. Even if it was what I expected, it'd be cool to watch one of the first copies of the movie made. The first thing I noticed was the date of upload. It was uploaded just yesterday. I found that a little weird, seeing as most torrents of the movie had been uploaded years ago, but I didn't mind it. The date didn't really matter anyway. The second thing I noticed was that there were no comments, only a handful of cedars and leechers, but I figured that was because it was a recent upload. I don't remember the uploader's username, although I think it was something like ELNT or something like that, followed by 4 random numbers. I then looked at the description, hoping I'd find some answers there, only to find this. An American Tail, original version, date 6/17/86, video format.mp4. That date couldn't be correct. The movie was released on November 21st, not June 17th. The uploader must have gotten the release date wrong, although I can't see how looking up the release date as well as making an organized description was so hard for them to do. Maybe they were in a rush or just lazy. I really had no idea. Well, I was here now, so despite my suspicion about the authenticity of the torrent, I downloaded it. After a few minutes, it was finished. I ran a quick virus scan of the file, and nothing harmful was detected. Grabbed myself a drink, sat back down on my chair, made myself comfortable, started to play the movie, excited for an hour of pure nostalgia. Not to my surprise, the movie was completely normal. All the characters looked, acted, like how I'd remember them. All the songs were as memorable as ever. I smiled. I saw the familiar scenes of Fievel's story play out in front of me once more. I figured that my theory about the torrent had been correct. Well, that was until the movie reached its ending. In the actual movie, Fievel ends up in Orphan Alley, where 3 orphans end up convincing him that his parents don't care that he's lost, because if they did, they'd have found him already. He believes them and ends up crying himself to sleep. The next day he's found by his family, Tony, Bridget, and Tiger, and all ends well. This was not the case with the version I saw. Instead, I was greeted with what I assume is either a fan-made or unreleased alternate ending. In this version, Fievel ends up in Orphan Alley as usual, except no one else is there but him, as well as Orphan Alley being unnamed. Rain started to pour down as Fievel looked around for a moment and sighed, a look of pure sadness plastered on his face. "They'll never find me. I should have known," Fievel said. "Do they even care? Did they even try?" Fievel seemed to think about it for a moment. His facial expression quickly changed from a look of sadness to anger. It was then that the sound of thunder boomed. "Yeah, if they did care, they would have found me right now," Fievel shouted, his rage over the failure of his family finally being released. It was then I started to hear a faint sound in the background. It was Tanya, Fievel's sister, softly singing somewhere out there like a lullaby. They never cared about me. Never. Not even for a moment. As soon as that sentence came out, tears swelled in Fievel's eyes. He fell back onto the brick wall behind him as he broke down, covering his face with his arms as he sobbed. The sound of his crying was gut-wrenching, and I had a hard time listening to it. It sounded painful, reflecting Fievel's situation. He'd lost everything, including all his hope. The sounds of Fievel's crying and Tanya's singing was now accompanied by a low droning noise. Thunder boomed again, and different scenes from the movie, such as Fievel falling off the ship, meeting Tony, dancing with Tiger, flashed blurrily on the screen as his crying began getting even worse. It was then that the sound of giggling started becoming audible, the tone of it sounding malevolent and malicious. It took a moment for me to realize that the giggling was in Tony and Bridget's voices. The low droning started to intensify as thunder boomed once more, and the two's giggling turned into hysterical laughter. The flashing scenes were then replaced by a transparent picture of Tony and Bridget. The camera slowly started to zoom in on Fievel as the picture slowly started to change, becoming black and white. The smiles on Tony and Bridget's faces became a bit bigger. Their eyes became black voids. Coming of this terrifying transition were all these indescribable sounds that quickly began increasing in volume, overshadowing all of the sounds, including Fievel's cries, which were now practically screams. Everything was in complete chaos. It then quickly cut to the next scene, with a small group of birds bathing in a bird bath. I paused the movie, took a moment to collect myself. What the hell did I just see? There were so many questions running through my head. This had to be a fan-made version, made by some kind of sicko with nothing better to do. But it all seemed to be perfectly done in Don Bluth's style. If it really was him that made this, I couldn't understand why he did it, considering this was supposed to be a movie for kids. I know the man didn't exactly sugarcoat his stories for a younger audience, but this was really pushing it. I found myself in a dilemma. Either turn off my laptop and try to forget about it, or witness the final scene of the movie. Although turning off my laptop would seem like the better choice, I knew if I did, I'd just leave myself at a cliffhanger and probably go back to see the ending anyway. Besides, I was already this far into it. Might as well see how it all ended. I pressed the play button. The scene with the birds ended, and a shot of Fievel, still in the fetal position, came on screen. It was still a bit dark out due to the fact that it was in the early morning. There was no music. In fact, there was no sound whatsoever. Fievel didn't move from his position at all, making it seem as if I was just staring at a picture of him. After a moment, he started leaning to his left, then fell on his side in an almost ragdollish way. That's when I saw he wasn't moving. Fievel was nothing more than a rotten mouse skeleton. Each of his bones had a tinge of light brown in them, as if he was discovered in the ground, decayed by time. The only ones I could see, however, was his skull and feet bones. His head was the first thing to hit the ground, the force of which caused that side of it to shatter on impact. His blue hat slid off because of this and laid right beside his skull. The camera focused on this as the soft sound of distant calls from Fievel's mother became audible. Her calls echoed through the wind, never to be answered, as the screen faded to black.